23rd, 2014. I'm Paul Ragsdale with co-host Lyle Stokes. Check. Topic is, do you really need a tackle upgrade? And that's pretty well going to be the difference between just everyday fishing and then catching the bigger fish. So I'm going to turn this over to Lyle first, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Well, the biggest thing that I've noticed that has made an improvement for Cindy and I fishing is electronics. We always had depth finders and stuff in the boat, but the new stuff and the better quality stuff, we fished tournaments for years before, but when they come out with this new stuff, we got a little bit behind with the drifting techniques and stuff that come out, and we didn't upgrade when everybody else did, and we got a little bit behind time. And the new Humminbirds and Lorances and stuff, the difference in the quality and what they'll do is amazing. And if you're into tournament fishing or consistently putting quality fish in the boats, you've got to upgrade your electronics to be able to keep up with everybody else and stay up on techniques and stuff.
Wow, hang on one sec. Could you do me a favor? Could you and Paul log out of that Catfish Weekly site so we might be able to get a couple more members in there since we're experiencing problems with the limit?
I'm gone.
Yeah, I can do that.
I'll keep an eye on it. And we'll see if we can't get a couple more people in here.
How's that?
I'm not, and I closed the Catfish Weekly page, so that should help.
Yeah, you have to close the Catfish Weekly page. It still shows Black Horse in there.
I'm completely out of it.
Well, it seems like we always run into a little minor thing every week, don't we?
Yeah, I'll refresh it and see if you're still in there. Yeah, it still shows you's in there. I'll just block you out of it and then unblock you later.
That's fine.
Got it all figured out?
No, well, block. There we go. All right, now we got it set up. Go ahead.
The other thing that we do is we went from monofilament line to braid line just because it doesn't have any stretch in it. That way, when you go to set your hook, you have a true hook set. I know a lot of people like monofilament line, but it just, the braid is what we prefer to do. We upgraded to a better quality hooks and stuff, and there's a lot of good brands out there. You can use Gamakatsu or Matsu or any of the major brands, but we have come to learn that the 8 and 10/0 circle hooks that made by Eagle Claw, the 2022s, that's what works the best for us. Quality reels, we went to Abu Garcia just nearly 100%. I have some Pin Phantoms and different things that we use, but Cindy and I, for drifting, we prefer the 6500s, and she uses them for anchor fishing also, and so do I, that and 7000s. So, it just depends on what you're doing. If you're just catching eating fish, you don't need the equipment that what we do, unless you're steadily catching, a lot of.
Did you freeze up on us?
I think so.
Okay, I'll give him a couple seconds here. All right. Here's we'll go over to Chuck, and we'll wait for Lyle to get back in. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yes, a couple years ago when I started hanging up on some pretty large fish, I was using the ugly stick catfish rods, $29.99. I had some 5500 C's, and I started hooking up on fish that they couldn't quite handle. Every now and then I could get in a 40 or a 45 before I got snagged up and would lose fish, had them breaking off. So I started just upgrading a little at a time, went with some 7000s, and Started getting me some, original catfight takedown rods from bottom dwellers, and I would get some. I got a couple of ugly stick tigers, which, $50, for a rod. The tigers are about indestructible. I've never heard of anybody breaking one, but after I ended up, spending about $150 on a rod, I was able to start getting those fish in, and I was more comfortable about it. And then I made the switch to braid also, which has really built my confidence, because I had a lot of issues with, most of it's probably my fault for not checking my mono for breaks, potential breaks, rough spots, and gouges, which I know a lot of times when I've broke off, it's been my fault on that. I just upgraded to a different trolling motor today. It's very hard, to drift, to watch electronics, and be in the back of the boat with a regular standard foot pedal trolling motor. Some of the trolling motors have foot pedals with 18-foot cords, but most of those also have the option where you can run the co-pilot and iPilot anyway if you've got the extra $150 to get your co-pilot. But I think, by me being in the back of the boat and being able to maneuver my boat and being back there where I need is going to be a big plus for me. Being back with the electronics, not everybody can afford to have, nice electronics on the front of the boat and the back. And I'm one of those. I've just got the best one I could afford, which was a $898. It does everything I need. Only reason I would need something better because I can't see very well. But pretty much I can see everything I need to see. If I zoom in on my side imaging or my down imaging when I see a nice shadow or something, yeah, I can zoom in and see that I'm marking or whatever. But most of the time I'm just focusing on channel edges and structure, which the structure I see fine anyway. But you don't have to have that side imaging and down imaging to get out and compete. They offer some 5-inch screens that's just got down imaging, which you can find the structure that's directly below your boat or not very far out, which I use my down imaging a lot anyway. Just find that structure and fish on that structure.
But, hey, Chuck, we got a question for you on here. It says, Chuck, do you use different rods for different setups? Let's say anchored compared to drifting?
No, I really don't. I had some ugly stick tigers, and I just wasn't very comfortable with those drift fishing. So, there's some real beefy rods, but I went ahead and switched over to a rod that I prefer. It's got a pretty soft tip. I don't have no trouble catching 3 or 5 pounders with it, but it still has a great backbone. So I couldn't afford, and I don't have the room to have a bunch of different rods. So finally, after I got my hands on a rod from Bottom Dwellers, the takedown rod, it's very affordable for me. So I went with it, and then me and Leanne both got us a Black Horse custom rod, which I wished everybody could afford to get one eventually. And I had Lyle build it exactly told him exactly what I wanted to do, anchor down or drift. It's got that pretty soft tip to where I can load up a 5-pounder, or if a big 60-70 pounder loads it up, I don't have any worries about getting it in either. So I pretty much tried to go standard to where no matter what situation I'm in, whatever rods I have in the boat, I'm able to use for everything.
Okay, let's go over to FUD.
Yeah. you see a lot of guys that show up to tournaments, and you know they ask for opinions on what they should get for a reel or for a rod, and really it's a real subjective question. I mean, for each individual, I can go out to tournaments and you'll see me out there with 11.99 giant, 42-inch, fish finder, and I might get last place in that tournament, whereas the guy that goes out there and has, the tiny little 2-inch one that has nothing but the circle on it and, is old school, can go out there and win that tournament. You don't necessarily have to have the best of the best to go out there and do well in tournaments, or to even just catch catfish for fun. What you probably need to do is do a lot of research. There's a lot of websites out there right now. Catfishing Pro is one good one that I know of, where you could go and you could ask any question you wanted, and you're going to get pretty good responses to it. And they're going to tell you, what kind of budget are you working with, what kind of fish are you looking for. There's really a lot of things that factor into gear on whether you need to upgrade or you're good with what you got. I mean, there's plenty of guys that can go to Walmart and get that ugly stick that they sell there for like $19 or $29 and go out to the ponds and catch 5, 10, 20-pound fish and not have a problem ever with that setup. I mean, you can go to Walmart and get a perfectly good setup to go out and catch catfish. When you get into tournament catfishing and you start to get a little serious about it, that's when you probably want to step your game up and start looking at maybe different types of line, different hooks. You spend a little bit more. There's certain things in the catfishing products where the money that you spend is well worth it, and there's certain other areas where it might not be as worth it right away. I mean, as much as I'd hate to say it, I wouldn't necessarily want somebody brand new in fishing to go out and buy a Black Horse custom rod when they're not ever going to catch anything over a 5-pound fish, and they didn't have a lot of money to begin with, and somebody just steered them in the wrong direction to start, because that might leave a bad taste in their mouth, to where as if somebody would have told them, just go to Walmart, get you an ugly stick, and they transitioned their catfishing into more serious catfishing, and then they would trust you to say, these Black Horse custom rods are really good. They're worth the money. Yeah. And then they'd be more likely to believe you down the road. I mean, that's you want to build trust and relationship with people. It isn't by trying to sell them the most expensive stuff, or trying to tell them that the most expensive things are the best, because a lot of times it's true, but there's a lot of times where that's not. And I think what you need to do is really look at, like I said, doing a lot of research for what you're doing. You get that research, you take your budget, what you have and what you're going for, and you try to make the best decision possible for yourself. One thing I'll talk about kind of quickly on is the differences between some of the things, like a Black Horse custom rod compared to a Tiger rod, or a rod that you'd buy from Bottom Dwellers. The difference in those rods are going to be, there's a backbone in a rod, and a lot of mass-produced rods, the company doesn't go through and individually find the backbone of that rod. There's a special technique you have to do to find the backbone of that rod, and if you set that rod up correctly with that backbone, that rod is specifically made for that backbone, and it's going to work better for catching fish. And then, like I said, a mass-produced rod, they're not going to find that backbone. They're just going to slap the eyes on it, slap the reel seat on it, and it's going to be like every other rod out there. Now, with the Black Horse custom rods, that's when you're getting up into a little pricier rod, but you get to customize it completely out. I mean, you can tell Lyle that you want ceramic insert eyes or stainless steel eyes. You want a cork reel seat or cork handles, or you want the butt cord gripped handles. You can tell them what size you want it, what action you want, what model of blank that you want, what colors you want on the rod. It's really just you know, the top tier, I would say, the top tier of having the nice rod, you know, something that it's going to be custom for you. It's going to be designed out to handle the fish that you're fishing for. It really is, you know, the top of the tier, and it's not, honestly, for what some people charge for custom rods. Lyle's prices are pretty, not pretty, they're extremely reasonable. You know, and I'm thinking that a lot of his rods are in that $150 range, you know, real close to that area, $150, $200. And while that might seem expensive to some, you know, it's really not, you know, for what you get. Like I just explained, you're not getting the quality that you're getting with the mass-produced rod. But, you know, as far as like what type of fish you're fishing, what line you're using, a lot of people, you know, you could go out and get, you know, 65-pound Power Pro from Walmart. You could get the monofilament that they have, like the Cajun mono, and most of that type of stuff you can get there, and you're going to be okay with it. And no, I'm not going to put the hair back on. I'm getting comments to put the hair on. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, we see it behind you.
Can you?
Yep.
Oh, I guess you can.
Either that or you can wear the horns, I guess.
But yeah, as far as you know, like the new people that come in, try to, if you're going to give them some information, really try to fill them out to best help them, because they might not know, you know, what questions to ask you to best help themselves. They might just, you know, come to you with a real broad question, and you just tell them what you use or whatever you're sponsored by, and it's not necessarily, like I said, the best information for them. So, you know, if you fill them out a little bit, see what kind of budget they have, what kind of fishing they're primarily doing, you might be able to give them a little better information, and they're going to trust you more in the long run, you know, to maybe come to your products that you're sponsored by. If they're not ready for them at the time, then later on they would, and they'll believe in you a little more.
I guess what we're trying to say is, if you're just catching table fare, or you're just out fishing for fun, and you're fishing in a local lake, local creek, or something of that sort, do a 404, a Shakespeare, catfish combo, or something like that, and I would go with a minimum 20-pound test if I was doing just that. But when you, it was like 3 years ago, I started seeing all these huge fish, and talking to different people in there and whatnot. As soon as I started having fish breaking my lines, snapping the eyelet off the tip of my pole and stuff like that, that's when I started looking into the other equipment. And I'm going to be fishing Mississippi River, Ohio River, or any of that, you might seriously want to consider using some braid and some of the upper priced rods, so you didn't, you know, if you get that fish of a lifetime, you're not going to end up with broke line and all you have to tell is a fish story, you know. But $300 and $400 in fishing equipment if you're just catching something to eat. And I guess that's pretty much what we're trying to say. You don't have to go out and buy $150, $200 rods, as Chris said.
Oh, we got a question for, I guess it would be anybody that is tournament fishing. I guess he said, Scott Wiseman asked if do you guys change rigs when going from anchoring to drifting, meaning terminal tackle? So
I don't.
Chuck?
No, I don't.
Lyle?
Yes, I do. We use different rigs. Not every time. It depends on the situation and what the fish are wanting. A lot of times We'll float when we're drifting. We'll float baits up as we're flying backwards, and I'll use a lot of two hook setups drifting that I probably wouldn't use when we are anchor fishing a lot of times to suspend the bait, because if you watch your electronics, a lot of times the bait, the fish will be 1, 2, 3 foot off the water, off the bottom of the river, and that way you can suspend them up, because the fish would rather come up to get the bait than they would go down to get it. And a lot of times we'll change our rigs in a tournament situation.
For myself, it really depends on when I'm drifting, what kind of structure I'm targeting. Like if I'm drifting, or I'm sorry, when I'm anchored. When I'm anchored, if I'm fishing for flathead, I may put a Kale on for some live gills. I might extend my leader with a heavier mono if I'm fishing in some rocks, some shale rocks, or real thick cover on wood or anything like that. But for the most part, in the most situations, I don't. Most situations, if I go from drifting, I mainly use a standard Carolina rig. With another question that I got was, Fudd, what's your choice on hook, circle, Kale, etc., and company choice? My personal choice, I do like the Team Catfish double action hooks. I do like Gamakatsu's. I've always kind of felt like the Gamakatsu 8/0 octopus circles are a little bit thin, and a lot of people I've heard breaking them off, bad batches and things like that. I was just with Jonathan Herndon down in Alabama, and we was using the Gamakatsu Super Nautilus, and while we caught some good fish on it, that hook is almost like an alligator hook, man. I don't see anything straightening that thing out. And we kind of came to a conclusion that might have been a little bit thick of a hook. So we're looking at the regular Nautilus and a few other different options that Gamakatsu has, something that's sort of in between the diameter of the regular Octopus Circle 8s and that Super Nautilus. If we can find something right in between there, I would imagine from Gamakatsu it would be a really good hook. Right now I'm pretty confident in the 8/0. Like I said, I still feel they're a little thin, but the Gamakatsu 8/0 are a real good hook. I've never had any problems with them. Unfortunately, we don't have the size and quantity of fish that some of the other people have, so I haven't had to worry about straightening an 8/0 Gamakatsu. So hopefully one day, I guess I can cross my fingers, But if Lyle or you have a input on that, you could throw it in as well.
Well, we use circle hooks for all anchor fishing. I've tried every brand in the world, and when they break, I don't use them anymore. We tried some of the famous red hooks that are supposed to be so great, and we was in a tournament one night, got 3 bites, had 3 takedowns, never hooked a fish. They ended up in the bottom of the river. I don't use those anymore. The thing that I go back to every time that I try something new that doesn't work out is Eagle Claws. They are tried and true. They work the best for me. As far as drifting, we use circle hooks on the dead sticks, but on the bouncing rods, we're using J-style hooks, and the best that I have found are the Charlie Brown 10/0s. And you can lay it on them babies. They won't break. They're sharp and ready to go.
Chuck, you got any input on that?
Yes, I use the Eagle Claw L2022s for every situation. I've been doing a little bit about back bouncing this stuff. I haven't got into it real heavy yet. I want to, try to get it down pat. But I've wanted to try the Team Catfish double action, but I really don't know how they would act on gut hooking. I've never gut hooked a fish with a 2022. So that's one reason I've been using it and haven't switched. My hookup ratio is unbelievable also. I was I was introduced by Jason Bridges. I'd call him 3 times a week on the phone and just pick his brain, and he would sit there and just talk to me for hours. Never had a problem. I mean, he won't give you a grid coordinates or tell you where a stump is to go catch a trophy, but he's gave me so much help on choosing and everything. After I started using the L2022s, after about a month, my hookup ratio was so high, didn't have any more gut hooks, and I mean, he was right. Everything, he's sponsored by Eagle Claw, but I mean, he wasn't leading me in the wrong way. He was he was tired of me calling him, asking him what to do to catch that trophy fish, and I think when I finally caught that 85 on Wheeler, he was probably more excited than I was because, he probably was like, well, this guy ain't gonna call and bug me 3 times a week now until he finally gets him one. But yeah, I really love that Eagle Claw L2022. It's been really good to me. But I wish I had more input on the double action because I'm trying to decide what to use for a back bouncing hook. If it don't gut hook a lot, I'd really like to try it.
We don't have any problem with the Charlie Brown, and they're similar design to those, and we don't gut hook with those. As far as the 2022 Eagle Claws, I was at Tombstone Tackle this last week and picked up some of those from Adam over there, and he told me that Eagle Claw is coming out with those in a bigger size also, and they are heavy wire, large diameter. And when you sink that baby, when a blue grabs that thing, it's not going anywhere. If you get him in the jaw, in the bottom lip or the upper lip or in the side of the mouth, they're coming to the boat. They're the toughest hook I've ever seen.
We got one more question. Basically, braid versus mono on each of us, and why?
I used to go mono till I started snapping line. And from that point on, I'm catching 16 plus pound channel cats and stuff. I just ended up going with a braid. And to me, it seems like it lasts longer. And that's the reason I use it. And the hooks, I found a source out of China that I've been buying my hooks from, which are pretty thick wires. I showed some of them to Lyle. They're pretty thick. But that's about when I started using nothing but braid anymore. There's too many lost fish.
What do you think, Chuck?
Well, on braid, it seems like the stretch and everything. I mean, I'm not an expert on fishing lines or anything like that, but it seems like the mono in some ways helps the circle hook have time to settle in the fish's mouth during the stretch, and has more time to get that hook at that point set, and then as he stretches it sets it better. I've had a few more misses using braid. When I was using mono, it seems like my hookup ratios were a lot better. But I'm cranking down on them a little bit quicker now using the braid. It seems like the longer I would let them take it down without cranking down on it's when it would go ahead and slip on out of their mouth. But I'm trying to adapt to it. But I'm really liking the braid. I haven't been using it for about 6 months now.
You think that stretch needs to equate with all braid, not like or with all mono, I mean, and not like a braid with a mono leader, or you think you need to get that right amount of stretch, you need all mono?
Well, I don't know, because at the same time I was switching rods. So when I was using that mono, I had stiffer rods, which I think the mono was really helping me with my hook sets. But now, since I got some lighter tips, and using that braid, I've got the rod's helping me out more. You know, getting more bend before he notices it's there. With that heavy action rod, where you know it with braid, you know that they can feel it immediately. It don't have time to slide and set; it'll slide right out of their mouth. But when I was using the mono, I had stiffer rods and stuff at the time, so I think the rods are really helping me more than anything.
Wow, did you already talk about that or no?
No, I'll touch on it just a little bit. We went from mono to braid simply because of the no stretch, and the deal with us is when we're fishing in the summertime, we do a lot of tournaments, and the braid has no stretch, and if you're using mono or if you're using braid on your side dead sticks, when they hit that, the action of the rod is what sets the hook. You don't have to worry about the give in the mono. The braid will not stretch, and when they pull it down, if you have the action of rod tip that you need, the hook will be set automatically. When back bouncing, which is one of the big deals for us, as we're drifting backwards down a river, you go to set the hook on a fish that has grabbed hold of your bait. When you set that hook, whatever action rod that you're using, and we use a heavy action drift rod, you can lay it on him because our hookup ratio is so much better with a J style hook or a Kale hook than with a circle hook drifting, that you got to lay it on him, and you don't want that line stretching. That way, when you set the hook, the rod, if you have the right action on the rod, the hook is just almost automatic, and our ratio of hook sets to non-hook sets have went up to where it's on. I'm not going to tell you it's 100%, but it's really, really close.
Would you say? I guess my question might be something that's stupid or not, but people might have that question. When you say you use a heavy action rod, now the heavy action, is that all considered only in the tip, or is that just considered the type or class of rod length that it is? Or could you have a heavy action rod that had more of like a light action tip to it, or a medium heavy action tip to it, if that makes sense?
All rod manufacturers, the blank manufacturers, rate their rods differently from one company to the next. And one thing that people have to remember is when you're using a crappie rod, they'll rate them heavy action, but that's for light action stuff. Same with bass rods. A lot of guys for channel cat using bass style rods, and they'll call them medium heavy or heavy action. But when you go to a catfish style rod, it's a lot heavier, more sturdy, and they rate them a little bit differently. But a medium heavy is probably enough for most instances, but the heavy action are a lot stiffer on the tip all the way through, and that doesn't mean large diameter. That just means that the quality of it will let you go ahead and set the hook, and it won't just bend right over. The power rating of your rod is from 2/3 of the way down from the tip back, and the tip rating, the action of it is the first third of the rod. So the heavy action is a lot stiffer than the medium fast, but that's what we prefer for drifting. That way you don't have that when you're hand rodding. You don't want that rod to bend over and give that fish a chance to get off. You want to be able to lay that hook in him and make it stick and stay where it needs to be.
So you'd say a good heavy action rod for a drifting setup?
Yes, and we make some rods that are lightweight for that, for guys fishing for channel cat, and then the heavier action are for the blues, and they still work good for anchor fishing. But the heavy action is what we prefer. That's what most of the drift guys use, and they're not like a broomstick. They still have some give to them. In fact, they have a lot of give to them, but they're stiffer than a medium heavy. They'd be the next step up from that. And I will just touch on things. Guys that are fishing ugly sticks and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, but the way they rate those blanks is a lot lighter than what the custom manufacturers rate them. They'll call a medium heavy, which is what we would call a light, or they'll call a heavy action a medium heavy, and it's just not that. They're rated differently for each manufacturer.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to do this real quick. The contest is still going, or the giveaway for the Whisker Wear apparel and catfishweekly.com. You need to make a sign like this. I don't think you can see it. Can you guys?
Well,
Yep.
your picture went to. Okay, there you go.
Okay, now it should have straightened out. But what you want to do is put catfishweekly.com and Whisker Wear apparel. Put it on a piece of paper. Put it in front of you just like this. Take a picture and upload that to Catfish Weekly Facebook page, and that'll be your entry. And then at the end of this month, we'll choose the winner. We do it by random.org, so you know it's not a good boy network. Just giving it to somebody we know. You'll actually get to see the drawing. So the giveaways for a white or black hoodie, your choice, which color you want, 2 koozies and a Catfish Weekly, or not a Catfish, a Whisker Wear apparel sticker. So I wanted to get that in, and I hope to see a lot more entries than what we've got, because the Catfish apparel's pretty cool. And I guess, are we ready for the last minute?
Yeah, the closing statements. There you go.
Okay. We'll go with Lyle and Chuck, then Chris, and then myself. So, any last words, Lyle?
Absolutely. I wanted to let everybody know that we have a fellow cat fisherman that has been diagnosed with cancer. His name is Calvin Myers. He's a great guy from Illinois, and we are planning on a May 31st benefit tournament for Calvin. We're getting just outstanding comments and numbers of people that are donating prizes for this benefit tournament, and I'd like to see as many people could show up. We haven't got a spot figured out for it yet. It's going to be somewhere on the Mississippi River and places that Calvin fish, and everybody that could attend, it would be awesome if you could do it. It would be a 50% payout going to the fishermen and 50% going to the family for travel expenses, because they're having to put him in St. Louis at the hospital, and it's a big deal for them as far as getting people down to see him and stuff. And that would be really awesome if everybody could make it. So, you know, if we can get a big crowd there, that would help the family out a great deal. Calvin's a really good guy. He's fished a lot of tournaments. He's on Facebook. He's on all the boards and everything. He's just an outstanding young man. He's 28 years old, so we need to help them out all we can. The only other thing that I have for tonight is, when we're talking about upgrades and stuff, the way we like to eat right there is my snack of choice in the boat. Everybody should have a can of Vienna sausages, so they got plenty to eat.
I got one more thing for you, Lyle.
All right, buddy.
Yesterday.
Hang on, real quick. Robert Tallman asked, can items be donated if we can't be there?
Yes, absolutely. You can send them to me. Contact me on Facebook or on Twisted Cat Outdoors, and I will give you my address. Right now we have people sending stuff in already. We've got 2 Cat River anchors on the way, and Whisker Wear apparel, and hardcore catfishing. Some others have given us the go-ahead that they're going to be sending us products for this giveaway, so it's really going to be a big deal for Calvin and his family. And Ricky Bracken yesterday donated 2 boxes of stuff that we're going to give away at the tournament, and it was just, you know, the help that we're getting right now is just overwhelming. So by the time this tournament comes up, it's going to be awesome.
Is that it?
So far, yeah.
Okay. Well, what I wanted Lyle to kick on real quick, we was at the Cat tournament outdoors trail, and I wanted Lyle to kind of go over maybe the top 3, because top 3 were just awesome, and I wasn't allowed to hit that and tell how much money was involved and all that cool stuff.
Absolutely, I'll be glad to. I'm pulling it up. Just give me 1 second here, and I'll have all that on here. We went Twisted Cat Outdoors tournament for March was in St. Louis at Columbia Bottoms. We had a 30-team turnout down there, and it was extremely cold. Low 30s for takeoff, and the wind was blowing out of the north, and it was just absolutely miserable. But we really did have a good turnout, and they caught some monster fish. I will mention right now that we was pre-fishing for that tournament the day before. We was down there Friday, and we come in, and Chris Morrow was at the top of the boat ramp sitting in his boat, and we pulled in. He was all smiled up. He needed some assistance. He was going to weigh a fish and take some pictures, and couldn't find anybody to help him, and he had a 78.8 pound blue. We took pictures for him and posted them, and helped him weigh the fish with the tournament scales, and that was a giant. But yesterday in the tournament, Brian Sanders and Marty Dara caught 2 fish on a 3-fish limit. They turned in 2 fish for 143.5 pounds, won $945. They also had big fish of the day, which was 81.5 pounds. Paid them $300. So $1,245 for 2 fish is pretty good. Hans Fronstock and Adam Rankin got 133.8 pounds for $420. Roger Gerloff and Richard Bauer, 113.8 pounds, 3-fish limit, $315. Jason Huggins and Dennis Gahn caught 3 fish for 81.3 pounds, paid them $252. Justin Wolf and Eric Rudy, 3-fish limit of 73.7 pounds, $168. So you guys get a chance to fish some of the Twisted Cat Outdoor tournaments, come on down. We'd love to have you. We've been really having some good turnouts.
Yeah, there's going to be some world records come out of that.
Well, Scott Wiseman said Indiana Catfish Association will donate to Calvin's tourney as well, so just to let you know.
That's outstanding. Thank you guys so much. This is going to be a big deal, and with Calvin not working, Annie being a school teacher, and them having to travel all these expenses, this is going to be wonderful for them guys. You talking about the records? 2 of the last 3 world records come from St. Louis, around the confluence of the Mississippi and the Missouri River. So you're right, Paul. It's just a matter of time till the next one comes out of there again. It's one of the great fisheries in the world, and if you're a cat fisherman and you haven't had a chance to fish the Mississippi River and the Missouri, you're missing out on one of the hot spots there is.
You know, if you're going to be in town, give me a holler too. You know, I may come down there and go fishing if you get down there and you want to just goof off and fish. But yeah, I think the world record is going to come out of there again. Go ahead with your closing comments, Chuck.
Yeah, if you're confused on what gear to get, you know, most sales are over the internet. You've never been able to, you know, hold the rod in your hand, feel the action yourself. Even though it's rated medium heavy, it may be too stiff. Everybody's different. You know, go to these tournaments, even if you're not fishing them, and check out everybody's gear and, you know, see what they're using and feel the actions of their gear and, you know, just mingle around with them and, you know, you make your own decision at what to order. You know, get the right stuff and, you know, catch some pigs.
And with cat fishermen, have good wording, because if you walk up to them and say, "Can I feel your rod?" you might get punched. So have good wording. You know, can I feel your fishing pole? You know, not can I feel your pole? Can I feel your rod? Anything like that.
I'd like to come in there just a second, too, before you get in on your stuff, Chris. Yesterday, Cindy and I had the great pleasure of fishing with Vicki Mathena. Her son and her fished together, Jason, in all tournaments, and they're extremely competitive. They win a lot of tournaments and place very high in tournaments all over the Midwest. And Vicki crawled in a boat with us, and I had to promise Jason that I would make sure that I took good care of Vicky, and she crawled in the boat with us, and we had such a great time. Just to let everybody know that if you get a chance to take someone fishing, it's well worth the effort and the time you spend. Those two women in the boat, they're both Angler of the Year winners. I had to sit in the front of the boat so they could catch a fish, but we had a blast taking out with us, and I just can't thank her enough for going with us.
Okay, as for me, I've had a lot happen in this last week, so I first want to thank Heath Malone. He did a nice little shout out to me on his. It's not necessarily a new; it's just a rejuvenated. He's got back into it a little bit. Project that he's got, Indiana Hunter, and that was used to be about hunting. Now they've got into catfishing. He has his own YouTube show, and I believe he's on Facebook as Indiana Hunter as well. He did a nice little shout out to me and my wife for getting second place at that big ICA Turtle Creek tournament last week, so thank you, Heath, for that. Jonathan Herndon, I went down to Alabama to fish with Jonathan Herndon and his TV show, be his guest for an episode of Maximum Catfishing. If you guys haven't heard of that yet, it's because it's not out. It's going to be on the World Fishing Network. I believe the first season is going to come out starting in October, around that time. So if you have the World Fishing Network, look for it. If you don't have Jonathan Herndon or Maximum Catfishing on your Facebook friends, look them up. I believe MaximumCatfishing.com is the website as well. But look for them on Facebook, add them, and look for the show. He's got a lot of good fishermen. I believe Bill Dance is going to be on the first season. Quite a few really good fishermen that's going to be on there. There's going to be some nice fish caught, and it's a catfishing show, so we really need to support it if we want to see things like that in the future. Everybody needs to watch it, have good remarks on it, and it's the first, for the most part, it's first of its kind, and we really need to support them for it. The ICA is going to have their first points tournament in Petersburg, Indiana, this Saturday at 7 o'clock. It'll be 8 o'clock. Need to be there by 7. Be at the meeting by 7:30, I believe. $60 entry fee. Indiana Catfish Association is their website.com. Also, again, that I'll reiterate to everybody that while every one of us have our own individual sponsors, that the show itself is not sponsored by any one particular product or person or company or anything like that. So we urge everybody to watch the show, enjoy the show. We'll have different topics on different products and giveaways on different products. So we're not going to be political in that way at all. We'll promote what we believe in and whatever's given to the show for giveaways, things like that. So I believe I'm done.
All right.
Oh, wait a minute. Jonathan, I got my personal best blue when I was down there filming with a 64-pound blue. It was awesome. So be looking for that picture. I haven't put them out. I know Jonathan did when I caught them, but I haven't put them out on my page yet. But they'll be out, and they'll be my cover photo and everything else under the sun here very, very shortly.
He tagged you in it, so it's on your page.
We don't care about
Chris.
personal best. We don't
Thank
care.
you.
Anyway, guys, I guess we're going to close it out tonight and BSing. And if you have any questions at all, by all means, go to catfishweekly.com, and you'll see the email under each one of us. You can send us an email, ask us a question or whatnot. I guess we'll just roll it up then. And again, thanks for watching. Until next time, if you ain't fishing, you ain't living.